The year is 1582. Oda Nobunaga, the most powerful warlord in Japan, sleeps in Honnoji Temple in Kyoto. He's surrounded by guards, protected by walls, confident in his military supremacy. He has conquered half of Japan through superior tactics and ruthless innovation. No samurai army can touch him. But samurai aren't his problem tonight. In the darkness outside, figures move without sound. They wear dark clothing that blends with shadows. They carry tools, not just weapons, grappling hooks, smoke bombs, specialized blades. They are shinobi, what the world would later call ninja, and they operate by rules that would make any honorable samurai recoil in disgust. They don't seek glory or recognition. They don't fight fair or announce their presence. They simply complete their mission, then disappear like smoke. While samurai lived by Bushido, honor, direct confrontation, death before dishonor, ninja lived by a different code entirely. Survival, pragmatism, mission success at any cost. Samurai despised them as dishonorable assassins. Lords employed them in secret while denying their existence publicly. They were the shadow side of feudal Japan, the necessary evil no one acknowledged, but everyone used. Today, we celebrate transparency, authenticity, living your truth. We demand people operate in the open, condemn those who work behind scenes, mock anyone who isn't loudly broadcasting their every move. But the most effective operators in any field, intelligence agents, strategic advisors, power brokers, still work like ninja, invisibly, pragmatically, judging success by results rather than recognition. The ninja understood something we pretend to reject, but secretly practice. Sometimes the most important work happens in shadows. Ninja culture emerged in the mountainous regions of Aiga and Koga, provinces isolated enough to develop their own martial traditions outside samurai control. These weren't noble warriors with hereditary status. They were farmers, merchants, monks, and outcasts who developed survival techniques in regions where central authority was weak and danger was constant. They learned to fight not for honor, but for survival. They studied not elegant sword techniques, but practical killing methods. They trained not to die gloriously, but to live effectively. The distinction is crucial. Samurai trained to face death with composure, viewing combat as a test of character, where dying well mattered as much as winning. Ninja trained to avoid death entirely, viewing combat as a problem to solve through any means necessary. Deception, poison, ambush, retreat. If you could accomplish your mission without fighting, that was superior to winning a fight. If you could kill from distance without risk, that was smarter than close combat. If you could make death look natural or accidental, that was more professional than leaving bodies with sword wounds. This pragmatism developed from necessity. In Iga and Koga, you didn't have the luxury of honor-bound combat. You had larger, better-equipped enemies who would destroy you if you fought fairly. So you developed techniques they couldn't counter: infiltration, espionage, psychological warfare, unconventional weapons. You learned that survival requires adaptability, that pride is a luxury the weak can't afford, that effectiveness matters more than appearance. Today's startup culture ironically mirrors this. Established corporations are like samurai, bound by tradition, fighting with conventional methods, constrained by what's proper. Startups succeed by fighting like ninja, finding unconventional approaches, exploiting weaknesses in traditional business models, surviving through adaptation rather than strength. The lesson remains: when you can't win by conventional rules, change the game entirely. What made ninja truly dangerous wasn't their weapons. It was their willingness to do what samurai considered beneath dignity. They studied shinobi iri, stealth entry, learning to pick locks, climb walls, hide in impossible spaces. They mastered hensojutsu, disguise, becoming monks, merchants, entertainers to infiltrate targets. They practiced intonjutsu, escape techniques, prioritizing survival over standing ground. They used kusarigama, chained sickle weapons, shuriken, throwing stars, fukiya, blowguns with poison darts, and makibishi, caltrops to disable pursuers. They employed chemical weapons, smoke bombs for confusion, blinding powders, even primitive explosives. They studied pressure points for silent killing, pharmacology for poisons that mimicked natural death, psychology for manipulation and interrogation. But their most powerful weapon was information. Ninja networks gathered intelligence systematically. Troop movements, supply routes, political alliances, personal weaknesses of enemy lords. They infiltrated castles months before attacks, mapping layouts, identifying vulnerabilities, establishing escape routes. They turned servants into informants, merchants into observers, monks into spies. By the time an attack came, they knew everything, while the enemy knew nothing. Compare this to modern corporate espionage, competitive intelligence, growth hacking. The most successful companies don't just build better products. They gather better information about markets, competitors, customer psychology. They infiltrate industries, identify weaknesses in established players, exploit information asymmetries. We call it disruption and celebrate it in business magazines. But it's the same principle ninja practiced 5 centuries ago. Win by knowing what others don't. Strike where they're weak. Succeed before they understand what happened. The moral lesson isn't that deception is virtuous. It's that information is power, and those who gather it systematically will defeat those who rely solely on direct strength. Among all ninja, one name stands above: Hattori Hanzo, the demon Hanzo who served Tokugawa Ieyasu. In 1582, when Nobunaga was betrayed and killed at Honnoji, Ieyasu found himself trapped deep in hostile territory with only a handful of men. Rival lords were hunting him. Every road was watched. Capture meant death, and with it, the end of the Tokugawa clan. Hattori Hanzo didn't lead Ieyasu's army. He led the escape. Using his Iga ninja network, Hanzo guided Ieyasu through mountain passes only locals knew, arranged safe houses in villages that owed favors, bribed gate guards, spread disinformation about Ieyasu's location, and orchestrated the most successful extraction in Japanese history. Ieyasu reached safety. Years later, he became shogun and ruled Japan for decades, creating the peace that lasted 2.5 centuries. Without Hanzo's shadow work, there would be no Tokugawa shogunate, no Pax Tokugawa, no cultural flowering of the Edo period. History turned on one ninja's ability to operate where samurai methods would have failed completely. Samurai honor demanded facing enemies directly, which would have meant Ieyasu's certain death. Ninja pragmatism meant surviving by any method necessary, which meant Japan's future was secured. This reveals a profound truth. Honor without pragmatism is just expensive. Principle without effectiveness is just performance. Sometimes the greatest loyalty isn't dying dramatically for your lord. It's ensuring he lives to achieve his purpose. Sometimes the highest service happens in shadows, uncelebrated and unacknowledged, judged only by whether the mission succeeds. Today's leaders face the same choice. Surround yourself only with those who agree publicly and operate honorably, or include operators who'll do what's necessary without needing recognition. The most effective organizations have both: public champions and shadow operators, each serving crucial roles without judging the other. But ninja weren't just skilled. They followed their own code, recorded in scrolls like the Bansen Shukai and Shoninki. These weren't philosophical meditations like Hagakure. They were practical manuals covering everything from lockpicking to weather prediction, disguise to toxicology, psychology to architecture. Yet beneath the techniques lay principles. Shinobi Shichi Ho, 7 ways of going. A ninja must master 7 disguises: monk, merchant, entertainer, craftsman, farmer, priest, samurai. You must become so convincing in each role that you're invisible, not by hiding, but by belonging. The lesson: the best camouflage isn't looking like nothing. It's looking like exactly what people expect to see. Seishin Teki Kyoyo, spiritual refinement. A ninja must control fear, anger, desire. Emotions create patterns. Patterns create predictability. Predictability creates vulnerability. You must become like water, formless, adapting to any container, impossible to grasp. The lesson: emotional control isn't about suppression. It's about not letting internal states dictate external actions. Kyojitsu Tenkan Ho, the law of changing truth and falsehood. Never let enemies know what's real. Mix truth with lies until they can't distinguish. Create multiple explanations for every action, so they waste resources investigating all possibilities. The lesson: in conflict, ambiguity is advantage. Clarity serves those who already hold power. Today, these principles apply everywhere. In negotiations, the side that reveals less has more leverage. In markets, companies that maintain strategic ambiguity about their plans prevent competitors from responding effectively. In personal conflicts, those who remain emotionally opaque can't be manipulated. We teach radical transparency and authentic communication, which are valuable in trust-based relationships, but disastrous in competitive or adversarial situations. The Ninja Code wasn't about being evil. It was about understanding that different contexts demand different approaches. Sometimes transparency builds trust. Sometimes opacity creates safety. Wisdom is knowing which situation demands which response. While samurai fought pitched battles in open fields, measuring honor through visible courage, ninja waged a different kind of war, one where no one knew they were fighting. They sabotaged supply lines, so armies starved without knowing why. They spread rumors, so enemy lords mistrusted their own advisors. They assassinated key individuals, so organizations collapsed without overt attack. They gathered intelligence, so their employers made better decisions than better-equipped opponents. This is the war of information, psychology, and positioning. A ninja operation succeeded when the enemy never realized they'd been attacked, when outcomes looked like bad luck rather than enemy action, when victories appeared natural rather than manufactured. The highest achievement wasn't killing an enemy lord. It was making him paranoid enough to execute his own loyal retainers, destroying himself more thoroughly than any assassin could. Consider the Battle of Okayazama in 1560. Oda Nobunaga defeated Imagawa Yoshimoto's army of 25,000 with only 3,000 troops. Impossible odds. Samurai historians credit Nobunaga's courage and tactical genius. But ninja records tell a different story. Nobunaga's ninja infiltrated Imagawa's camp, learned his exact route, discovered he'd be traveling with minimal guards during a rainstorm, and positioned Nobunaga's forces perfectly. What looked like miraculous victory was actually the result of perfect intelligence executed precisely. Today's most consequential battles happen similarly invisibly. Elections turn on data analytics and micro-targeting, not just speeches. Markets shift based on information advantages, not just capital. Companies rise or fall based on intelligence about competitor strategies, not just product quality. We celebrate visible leaders, while the real work often happens in analytics departments, intelligence teams, strategic planning sessions no one photographs for Instagram. The lesson: what looks like luck is often preparation meeting opportunity. What appears as genius is often just better information. What seems like courage is sometimes just knowing something others don't. The ninja understood this completely. Appearance and reality are different things, and wise operators focus on reality while managing appearance. But living in shadows exacts a cost. Ninja couldn't claim credit for successes. That would expose their methods and identities. They couldn't defend their honor when accused of dishonor. Defending would compromise their value. They couldn't build public reputations. Their strength came from anonymity. They sacrificed everything samurai valued: recognition, status, historical legacy, for effectiveness without acknowledgement. Many ninja missions required deep cover lasting years. You'd infiltrate an enemy castle as a servant, living genuinely as a servant, building trust gradually, gathering information slowly, waiting for the moment your intelligence mattered. Years of your life invested in a role no one would ever know you played. Then, when the information proved crucial to your lord's victory, you couldn't even claim credit. Your reward was knowing the mission succeeded, nothing more. This is perhaps the hardest discipline of all: serving without recognition, succeeding without credit, sacrificing while being condemned by those who don't understand what you've done. Ninja who operated in enemy territory knew they'd be executed as dishonorable spies if caught, while samurai who died in battle became celebrated heroes. Same death, radically different legacies. Today, this manifests in unsung roles everywhere. Intelligence analysts whose insights prevent disasters that never happen, so no one knows what they prevented. Strategic advisors whose counsel prevents catastrophic decisions, earning no credit for disasters that didn't occur. Teachers whose intervention changes a student's trajectory, never knowing the future they altered. Parents who sacrifice careers for children who will only understand decades later, if ever. Modern culture exacerbates this with its obsession with visible achievement, personal brands, documented success. We've created a world where the unobserved might as well not exist, where serving without recognition feels like failure, where impact without attribution seems pointless. The Ninja Code challenges this completely. Real power often operates invisibly. True effectiveness requires no audience, and the deepest service asks for nothing in return. But the ninja way wasn't invincible. In 1581, Oda Nobunaga launched his conquest of Iga Province, the ninja heartland. He was tired of Iga ninja interfering with his plans, tired of their independence, tired of their refusal to submit. He mobilized 60,000 troops against a province of perhaps 10,000 people, many of them non-combatants. The ninja employed every technique they'd perfected over generations: guerrilla tactics, ambushes, psychological warfare, night raids. It wasn't enough. Nobunaga's overwhelming force, systematic strategy, and willingness to burn entire villages eliminated the tactical advantages ninja normally exploited. He didn't fight by samurai rules. He fought total war. Villages were razed. Families were slaughtered. The Iga ninja were crushed not because their techniques failed, but because Nobunaga refused to play the game where those techniques worked. The survivors scattered, many eventually serving other lords like Hattori Hanzo did with Tokugawa Ieyasu. Iga never recovered its independence. The price of living outside the system was paid in blood, when someone with sufficient resources decided to destroy them completely. This reveals the limitation of unconventional approaches. They work until someone with conventional power decides you're enough of a threat to eliminate, regardless of cost. You can be smarter, more skilled, more creative. But if your opponent has vastly more resources and willingness to use them brutally, intelligence alone may not save you. Today's lesson: disruption works until the disrupted fight back seriously. Startups succeed with unconventional approaches until established players wake up and leverage their massive advantages. Activists achieve change through clever tactics until power structures decide to crush them systematically. The ninja weren't defeated because they were wrong. They were defeated because they faced an enemy willing to pay any price to destroy them. The moral isn't defeatism, it's realism. Unconventional strength works within certain parameters. When facing truly overwhelming force with no constraints, even the cleverest approach may fail. Wisdom is knowing when your advantages are sufficient and when you're actually outmatched. After the Edo period began in 1603, ninja gradually disappeared from history. Peace eliminated the need for their services. The Tokugawa shogunate's intelligence networks absorbed some techniques while prohibiting others. Ninja families became merchants, artisans, farmers, hidden in plain sight one final time, this time permanently. Their techniques were preserved in secret scrolls, passed through families, most of which weren't revealed until the 20th century. But their principles never died. Modern intelligence agencies worldwide study ninja tactics, infiltration, psychological operations, information warfare. Special forces incorporate their approach to irregular warfare. Cybersecurity experts recognize their methods in modern hacking culture. Find the vulnerability, exploit it silently, leave no trace. Business strategists see their thinking in disruption theory and competitive intelligence. The Bansen Shukai, finally published in the 1950s, reveals sophisticated understanding of human psychology, organizational vulnerability, and information leverage that remains relevant today. The Shoninki's teachings on emotional control, strategic patience, and adaptability could be mistaken for modern cognitive behavioral therapy or tactical psychology. What makes ninja philosophy enduringly relevant is its ruthless focus on reality over appearance, effectiveness over aesthetics, results over recognition. In a world drowning in performance, people curating images rather than building substance, organizations prioritizing optics over outcomes, leaders managing perception rather than solving problems. The ninja approach offers a corrective. Focus on what actually works, regardless of how it looks. Today's most effective operators in any field, whether business, technology, social change, or personal development, often work like ninja. They study deeply before acting. They exploit information advantages. They adapt constantly. They measure success by outcomes rather than applause. And they're comfortable working in ways that won't be celebrated or even acknowledged. They understand that the most powerful chess moves often look boring, that the best strategy sometimes means not fighting at all, and that true mastery rarely requires an audience. The ninja and samurai represented opposite philosophies: honor versus effectiveness, visibility versus stealth, glory versus results. Yet Japan needed both. Samurai provided the visible structure of authority, the public face of order, the cultural ideal toward which society aspired. Ninja provided the invisible operations that made samurai dominance possible, handling the problems that couldn't be solved honorably, achieving the outcomes that required methods no one could acknowledge. This is the fifth path we've explored in Kensei Code. Miyamoto Musashi showed us that mastery requires walking alone and accepting reality without comfort. Takeda Shingen revealed that the greatest victories come from preparation so thorough that fighting becomes unnecessary. Yamamoto Tsunetomo taught us that embracing death daily liberates us from fear's paralysis. The 47 Ronin demonstrated that honor demands payment regardless of personal cost. Now the ninja teach us that effectiveness sometimes requires operating without recognition, that the most important work often happens invisibly, because once you understand that both swords and shadows have their place, will you learn to operate in both light and darkness? The code awaits.